bm.tv.
Welcome back to The Swordsmith. I'm your host, Pastor Richard, and today we're going to be getting into chapter 32 and maybe even beyond today of Genesis. So we're going to pick up at, we're going to pick up at the last verse of chapter 31, just so we can connect over into the story, because in some of the manuscripts, verse 55 of chapter 31 is actually the first verse of chapter 32. So it reads, "Early in the morning, Laban kissed his grandchildren and his daughters goodbye and blessed them. Then Laban left and returned home. So Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. When Jacob saw them, he exclaimed, 'This is the camp of God.' So he named that place Mahanaim. Jacob sent messengers on ahead to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the region of Edom. He commanded them, 'This is what you must say to my lord Esau. This is what your servant Jacob says. I have been staying with Laban until now. I have oxen, donkeys, sheep, and male and female servants. I have sent this message to inform my lord so that I may find favor in your sight.' The messengers returned to Jacob and said, 'We went to your brother Esau. He is coming to meet you and has 400 men with him.' Jacob was very afraid and upset. So he divided the people who were with him into two camps, as well as the flocks, herds, and camels. If Esau attacks one camp, he thought, then the other camp will be able to escape. Then Jacob prayed, 'O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, O Yahweh, you said to me, return to your land and to your relatives, and I will make you prosper. I am not worthy of all the faithful love you have shown your servant. With only my walking stick I crossed the Jordan, but now I have become two camps. Rescue me, I pray, from the hand of my brother Esau, for I'm afraid he will come and attack me, as well as the mothers with their children. But you said, I will certainly make you prosper and will make your descendants like the sand on the seashore, too numerous to count.'" So basically, we see again that Jacob is, once again, very afraid. He's overthinking things, and so he's scared that his brother Esau is going to come through on what he had said so many years ago when Jacob fled because he had stolen his brother's birthright. And so, he had tricked him out of his birthright, to be technically correct. But we do see that even though he's scared, he's not just doing whatever he wants. He's praying to God, the God that he knows, Yahweh, the Most High God, the God of his fathers, and he's relying on what God has told him and saying, in essence, you've promised me all these things, so please save me from my brother, because, essentially, how else are these things going to be fulfilled if he kills me? So he's relying on that, and so he is relying on God. He, instead of just operating out of fear, while he does feel fear, he does the right thing and doesn't do something out of fear. Rather, he relies on God to get him through what it is he's fearing, which is the correct response. Just like when we have things that come into our life that make us feel fearful, it's not a sin to be afraid. Rather, it's a sin to act out of that afraidness in a way that is improper. The proper thing would be to take that and give it to God instead of dwelling on it. So as we go on, we see Jacob stayed there that night. Then he sent as a gift to his brother Esau 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 female camels with their young, 40 cows and 10 bulls, and 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. He entrusted them to his servants, who divided them into herds. He told his servants, "Pass over before me and keep some distance between one herd and the next." He instructed the servant leading the first herd, "When my brother Esau meets you and asks, 'To whom do you belong? Where are you going? Whose herds are you driving?' Then you must say, 'They belong to your servant Jacob. They have been sent as a gift to my lord Esau. In fact, Jacob himself is behind us.'" He also gave these instructions to the second and third servants, as well as all those who were following the herd, saying, "You must say the same thing to Esau when you meet him. You must also say, 'In fact, your servant Jacob is behind us.'" Jacob thought, "I will first appease him by sending a gift ahead of me. After that, I will meet him. Perhaps he will accept me." So the gifts were sent on ahead of him while he spent the night in the camp. So Jacob is trying to appease his brother. He knows he's tricked him out of things. He knows his brother may still be mad. He's not sure, but he's concerned that that's the case. So he's trying to appease his brother by giving him things that the Lord has blessed him with. We go on, verse 22. Now this is where it gets interesting. During the night, Jacob quickly took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons and crossed the ford of the Jabbok, the river. He took them and sent them across the stream along with all his possessions. So Jacob was left alone. Then a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw he could not defeat Jacob, he struck the socket of his hip so the socket of Jacob's hip was dislocated while he wrestled with him. Then the man said, "Let me go, for the dawn is breaking." "I will not let you go," Jacob replied, "unless you bless me." The man asked him, "What is your name?" He answered, "Jacob." "No longer will your name be Jacob," the man told him, "but Israel, because you have fought with God and with men and have prevailed." Then Jacob asked, "Please tell me your name." "Why do you ask my name?" the man replied. Then he blessed Jacob there. So Jacob named the place Peniel and explained, "Certainly I have seen God face to face and have survived." The sun rose over as he crossed over Peniel, but he was limping because of his hip. That is why to this day the Israelites do not eat the sinew which is attached to the socket of the hip, because he struck the socket of Jacob's hip near the attached sinew. So we see here that it starts out by explaining that Jacob was wrestling with somebody in the middle of the night, and he wouldn't let go of him. And so eventually the man strikes the socket of Jacob's hip and dislocates it. And Jacob still won't let go unless he blesses him. So this is one of those instances where the person recording this, writing it down, is setting up the story, but as you read the whole story, you start to get a fuller picture and realize that Jacob was actually wrestling with God himself. This would be another instance that we find in the Old Testament of the person we would refer to as the second person of the Trinity. Some refer to him as the pre-incarnate Jesus Christ. Basically, it's God in a human form. And again, Jacob clearly by some point realized who he was wrestling with, because he asked him to bless him. And again, why would Jacob ask him to bless him if he didn't know he was somebody greater than he was, especially God? And so when this happens, God renames him. He's no longer will your name be Jacob, but Israel. And Israel basically means God fights. And again, he's being named this because he wrestled or fought with God. And so what we'll see from now on is the writer is going to consistently go back and forth referring to him as both Jacob and as Israel. Sometimes even in the same sentence, you'll see the name Jacob and Israel, and it's referring to the same person. Now, as time goes on, obviously, everyone that comes from Jacob, the nation will be called Israel. And again, that's got a prophetic significance because, as we know from the rest of the Bible, the nation of Israel constantly fought with God. They were his people, but they constantly would wrestle back and forth with him. They'd do things right, and then they'd get off track and start doing things wrong again, and God would let them, fall under the authority of other nations, and then he would rescue them because they started to call on him and do the right thing again, and back and forth, they wrestled and fought with God. So this is where the name Israel comes from, Israel. And so we pick up at verse 1 of chapter 33. Now he's going to meet with Esau. Jacob looked up and saw that Esau was coming along with 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the 2 female servants. He put the servants and their children in front, with Leah and her children behind them, and Rachel and Joseph behind them. But Jacob himself went on ahead of them, and he bowed toward the ground 7 times as he approached his brother. But Esau ran to meet him, embraced him, hugged his neck, and kissed him. Then they both wept. When Esau looked up and saw the women and the children, he asked, "Who are these people with you?" Jacob replied, "The children whom God has graciously given your servant." The female servants came forward with their children and bowed down. Then Leah came forward with her children, and they bowed down. Finally, Joseph and Rachel came forward and bowed down. Esau asked them, "What did you intend by sending all these herds to me?" Jacob replied, "To find favor in your sight, my lord." But Esau said, "I have plenty, my brother. Keep what belongs to you." "No, please take them," Jacob said. "If I have found favor in your sight, accept my gift from my hand. Now that I have seen your face and you have accepted me, it is as if I have seen the face of God. Please take my present that was brought to you, for God has been generous to me, and I have all I need." Then Jacob urged him. When Jacob urged him, he took it. Then Esau said, "Let's be on our way. I will go in front of you." But Jacob said to him, "My Lord knows that the children are young, and that I have to look after the sheep and cattle that are nursing their young. If they are driven too hard for even a single day, all the animals will die. Let my Lord go on ahead of his servant. I will travel more slowly, at the pace of the herds and the children, until I come to my Lord in Seir." So Esau said, "Let me leave some of my men with you." "Why do that?" Jacob replied. "My Lord has already been kind enough to me." So that same day Esau made his way back to Seir, but Jacob traveled to Succoth, where he built himself a house and made shelters for his livestock. That is why the place was called Succoth. And Succoth essentially means tents. That's what they dwelled in. So it's being named that because Jacob, that is Israel, set up his tents there. So just to jump off there for a moment. So Esau isn't really mad anymore, at least not that we can see. He's not ready to kill Jacob like he was earlier in the story. And so we see that, Jacob's prayer was answered. His brother came to him and everything was all right. And Jacob blessed him with things that the Lord had blessed him with. After he left Paddan Aram, Jacob came safely to the city of Shechem in the land of Canaan, and he camped near the city. Then he purchased the portion of the field where he had pitched his tent. He bought it from the sons of Hamor, Shechem's father. for 100 pieces of money. There he set up an altar and called it, "The God of Israel is God." So now we're going to get into another incident that we're going to see happen. So chapter 34, verse 1. Now Dinah, Leah's daughter, whom she bore to Jacob, went to meet the young women of the land. So if you remember a little while earlier, a few chapters ago, usually most of the focus is on the males that are born in the family, but there was a mention of a daughter named Dinah. And we're going to see here that there is a reason why that was mentioned that she was mentioned back then, because there's now a story that involves her. So again, earlier they mentioned that so that there's some backstory so that we can see what actually happens. So we know that where she came from. When Shechem, son of Hamor, the Hivite, who ruled that area, saw her, he grabbed her, forced himself on her, and sexually assaulted her. So again, this is Shechem that is raping Dinah, unfortunately. Then he became very attached to Dinah, Jacob's daughter. So now, after doing this evil deed, he basically falls in love with her, or is very attracted to her. He fell in love with the young woman and spoke romantically to her. Shechem said to his father Hamor, "Acquire this young girl as my wife." When Jacob heard that Shechem had violated his daughter Dinah, his sons were with the livestock in the field. So Jacob remained silent until they came in. Then Shechem's father Hamor went to speak with Jacob about Dinah. Now Jacob's sons had come in from the field when they heard the news. They were offended and very angry because Shechem had disgraced Israel by sexually assaulting Jacob's daughter, a crime that should not be committed. So again, we see in this sentence that the reference is both to Israel and Jacob. He's the same person. So not only is this obviously an offense against Dinah, and she's no longer a virgin because of it, but we see that it's also an offense against the family themselves, against Israel, against Jacob. But Hamor made this appeal to them. And again, this is to her brothers, the sons of Israel. "My son Shechem is in love with your daughter." So they're all really there, Jacob included. "Please give her to him as his wife. Intermarry with us. Let us marry your daughters and take our daughters as wives for yourselves. You may live among us, and the land will be open to you. Live in it, travel freely in it, and acquire property in it." Then Shechem said to Dinah's father and brothers, "Let me find favor in your sight, and whatever you require of me, I'll give. You can make the bride price and the gift I must bring very expensive, and I'll give whatever you ask of me. Just give me the young woman as my wife." Jacob's sons answered Shechem and his father Hamor deceitfully when they spoke, because Shechem had violated their sister Dinah. So what we're about to see is the sons of Jacob are going to give an answer that's going to be a trap. They're deceiving them so that they can trap them. They said to them, "We cannot give our sister to a man who is not circumcised, for it would be a disgrace to us. We will give you our consent on this one condition. You must become like us by circumcising all your males. Then we will give you our daughters to marry, and we will take your daughters as wives for ourselves, and we will live among you and become one people. But if you do not agree to our terms by being circumcised, then we will take our sister and depart." Their offer pleased Hamor and his son Shechem. The young man did not delay in doing what they asked because he wanted Jacob's daughter Dinah badly. Now he was more important than anyone in his father's household. And this statement is a preface. It's giving the reason why in just a moment we're going to see that all these other men are going to consent to being circumcised because of the fact that Shechem was more important than anyone in Hamor's household. So Hamor and his son Shechem went to the gate of the city and spoke to the men of the city. These men are at peace with us, so let them live in the land and travel freely in it, for the land is wide enough for them. We will take their daughters for wives, and we will give them our daughters to marry. Only on this one condition will these men consent to live with us and become one people. They demanded that every male among us be circumcised just as they are circumcised. If we do so, won't their livestock, their property, and all their animals become ours? So let's consent to their demand so they will live among us. So you also see in this statement that there's also some ulterior motives going on here. Oh, hey, if we do this, we're going to be able to marry with them, and we'll be able to also have part in their livestock too. So they're not just doing this because they like the women or the other people. They're doing it because they want to get stuff out of the deal also. So they're not all above board either. All the men who assembled at the gate agreed with Hamor and his son Shechem. Every male who assembled at the city gate was circumcised. In 3 days, when they were still in pain, 2 of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, each took his sword and went to the unsuspecting city and slaughtered every male. They killed Hamor and his son Shechem with the sword, took Dinah from Shechem's house and left. Jacob's sons killed them and looted the city because their sister was violated. They took their flocks, herds, and donkeys, as well as everything in the city and in the surrounding fields. They captured as plunder all their wealth, all their little ones, and their wives, including everything in the houses. So again, we see what they were really planning to do. They wanted them to be circumcised so that all the men who could actually fight would be out of commission because they were still in pain from circumcision, so that they could come in and slaughter them as payback for Dinah being raped. Then Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, "Have you brought ruin on me by making me a foul odor among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites? I am few in number, and they will join forces against me and attack me, and both I and my family will be destroyed." But Simeon and Levi replied, "Should he treat our sister like a common prostitute?" So what we see here is, again, a situation where his sons, unfortunately, respond in a terrible way, but we also see at the same time that, again, sometimes God allows things to happen because humans have a choice. Jacob's sons had a choice whether they wanted to slaughter these men or not. And these men weren't perfect. Again, 2 rights don't make a wrong, but there's also a bigger lesson here. All this happened because one guy couldn't control himself and raped a woman, took away her innocence, attacked her sexually. And the bigger point I'm trying to make here is, not only is that a dastardly deed, but it just shows what can come of a dastardly deed. Oh, you think that you doing this thing over here isn't that big of a deal, or maybe it's a deal, but it's not that big of a deal. You think, but by doing that, you cause more issues for other people. We've talked about this before. Your action that essentially you think is only going to affect you and that one other person, no matter how bad it is, ends up affecting a whole bunch of other people. All these men got slaughtered because, again, one guy, Shechem, couldn't control himself and raped Dinah. It's a total mess. We see things like this that happen today, maybe not in the same exact degree, but similar situations. I've heard stories where, somebody got cut off in traffic and gave the finger, they flipped somebody off, which, depending on what part of the world you're in, might be a different hand gesture showing your displeasure, your high displeasure. But when that happened, they flipped off and offended the wrong person, and then that person pulls out a gun and shoots them. Or in one case I heard, them and a child. Again, affecting more than just yourself. Something that you think is a flippant little thing to do ends up costing other people's lives. We have to be careful about what we're doing, even if it's not something that seems that's as bad as rape. Again, it might just be giving somebody the finger. Maybe somebody cuts you off, or maybe they're not even cutting you off. They're just trying to get somewhere, and you felt like you're cut off. So then you get in front of them and brake check them, but then something happens further and further. There's so many instances that we could go through where things like this happen in our world every day. That's why we have to control ourselves. If Shechem had controlled himself, not only would it spared his life, not only would Dinah have not been assaulted and raped, but all the men of that village wouldn't have been killed over this. So we're going to leave off there today. But again, we just want to remember in this section that we just read, we've got to do better. Think twice. Don't be hasty. When somebody does something that annoys you, whether they did it on purpose or not, think about what you're going to do before you do it, because that one mistake done in haste could cost not just you, but many other people. So I want to leave you there today. Next week, we'll pick up in chapter 35, but let's pray real quick. Father, I thank you for this time with the listeners and viewers. I ask that these stories, that you would just pull out the things that you want them to glean, Father. I ask that you would just remind us to not be hasty in our actions. That way we can spare more hurt and more pain in the world that's unnecessary. I ask that you would bless the viewers and listeners, that as they go throughout their week and their days, that you would just continually remind them that you're in control and that they need to lean on you and your guidance to keep them in your will. We praise you and we thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We'll see you guys next week. Again, remember, if you need prayer, 1-877-588-1664 is the prayer line. There's people waiting to pray with you. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me, richard@hsbn.tv.